They found her wedding ring washed up on the shore 3 days after she disappeared, but what they didn't find was her body. This is the story of Lily Carter, a woman who fell from the sky and rose from the sea. A woman who lost everything in a single, terrible moment, and then built something beautiful from the ruins. But before we talk about what she became, we need to talk about who she was. Lily grew up in a place where everyone knew your name. Sunny Creek wasn't on any map that mattered. It was just a small farming town tucked away in the heartland of America, where the roads were dusty, the people were honest, and life moved slowly, like honey dripping from a spoon on a summer afternoon. Her parents weren't rich. They didn't own much. But what they had, they shared. Her father worked the land from sunrise to sunset, his hands rough and strong. Her mother tended the garden, cooked meals that filled the house with warmth, and sang old songs while she worked. They taught Lily something money couldn't buy: kindness costs nothing, but it's worth everything. Lily was a dreamer. She'd sit on the porch at night, watching fireflies dance in the darkness, and imagine what her life might become. She didn't dream of mansions or money. She dreamed of something simpler, something deeper. She wanted a family. A real one. The kind where people looked at each other with love that didn't fade. The kind where a husband held his wife's hand not because he had to, but because he couldn't imagine letting go. She wanted to be a mother someday. She wanted to read bedtime stories and braid her daughter's hair and teach her son how to be brave and gentle at the same time. Simple dreams. Honest dreams. She never imagined those dreams would nearly kill her. The day Daniel Stone arrived in Sunny Creek, everything changed. He came in a black car that gleamed like a jewel under the sun. People stopped what they were doing just to watch him step out. He wore a suit that probably cost more than most families in town made in a year. His watch caught the light. His smile was sharp and confident. Daniel Stone wasn't from their world. He owned companies. Skyscrapers. He had the kind of wealth that seemed almost unreal to people like Lily, who counted pennies and saved for months just to buy a new dress. But when Daniel saw Lily at the town market, something shifted in his expression. She was arranging flowers, her hands dirt-stained but gentle. Her smile was genuine, not practiced, not fake. Just real. And maybe that's what caught him. Because in his world, nothing was real anymore. He pursued her like a storm chasing the horizon. Flowers arrived at her doorstep. Handwritten notes. Invitations to dinners at restaurants she'd only seen in magazines. He was charming. Attentive. He made her feel like she was the only person in the world who mattered. Lily's parents were cautious. "He's not from here," her father said quietly one evening. "Men like that, they live in a different world, sweetheart." But Lily was young. And she was in love. Or at least, she thought she was. When Daniel proposed, he did it under the stars, the same stars she used to dream under as a girl. He slipped a diamond ring onto her finger, and it felt like every fairy tale she'd ever heard was finally coming true. They were married 3 months later. And just like that, Lily Carter left Sunny Creek behind. She traded dirt roads for marble floors. She traded her mother's kitchen for a mansion with more rooms than she could count. She traded simplicity for something that looked like a dream. But dreams, she would learn, can turn into nightmares when you're not paying attention. For a while, it really did feel like magic. The mansion was beautiful. The gardens were endless. Lily had everything she'd never known she could want, and some things she didn't want at all. Staff who cleaned and cooked and spoke to her with distant politeness. Parties filled with people who smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. A husband who was always busy, always on the phone, always somewhere else even when he was standing right beside her. But then Noah was born. And for a brief, shining moment, Lily thought everything would be okay. Because when she held her son for the first time, when she looked into his tiny, perfect face, she felt something bigger than fear or loneliness or doubt. She felt purpose. She thought Daniel would feel it too. But he didn't. If anything, Noah's birth made things worse. Daniel grew colder. Meaner. He looked at Lily differently now, not like a wife, but like something that had disappointed him. He made comments about her body, about how she'd changed after the pregnancy. He mocked her when she was tired, when she struggled, when she tried to be the mother Noah deserved. "You've let yourself go," he'd say with a sneer, as if she were a car he'd bought that wasn't running the way he wanted anymore. Lily tried to be strong. She smiled when it hurt. She stayed quiet when she wanted to scream. She told herself it would get better. That this was just a phase. That the man she married was still in there somewhere. But deep down, she knew the truth. The man she married never existed. Daniel had been playing a part. And now that he had what he wanted, a wife, a son, the perfect image, he didn't need to pretend anymore. So he didn't. He belittled her in front of the staff. He ignored Noah unless there were cameras around. He spent his nights in his office or out with friends Lily never met. And when she tried to talk to him, to ask him why he'd changed, He'd look at her with such cold contempt that it felt like being slapped. But Lily stayed. Because of Noah. Because her son needed her. Because leaving felt impossible when you didn't know where to go or how to survive. So she endured. And she prayed that one day, somehow, it would end. It was a Tuesday morning when Daniel came to her with a smile. Not the cruel, mocking smile she'd grown used to. A real one. Or at least, it looked real. "Lily," he said softly, sitting beside her at breakfast. "I've been thinking." She looked up, surprised. He hadn't spoken to her like this in months. "I know I haven't been the husband you deserve," he continued, reaching for her hand. His touch felt strange, foreign, like a language she'd forgotten. "I've been under a lot of stress. Work, the business. I've let it consume me. But I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose us." Lily's heart ached. Not because she believed him completely, but because she wanted to. She wanted so badly for this to be real. "I've arranged something," Daniel said. "A trip. Just the two of us. A helicopter ride over the coast. We can talk. Really talk. No distractions. No business. Just us." She hesitated. There was something in his eyes she couldn't quite read. But then she thought of Noah. She thought of what it would mean if they could fix this. If her son could grow up in a home where his parents loved each other. "Okay," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Good. We leave tomorrow." The helicopter was sleek and black, just like everything Daniel owned. The pilot nodded to them as they climbed aboard. Lily's stomach churned, not from fear of flying, but from something deeper. Something she couldn't name. As they lifted into the sky, the world fell away beneath them. The coastline stretched out like a painting, blue water, white foam, golden sand. It was beautiful. Peaceful. For a moment, Lily let herself relax. Maybe this really was a new beginning. But then her stomach turned. The motion, the height, the stress, it all caught up with her at once. She felt bile rise in her throat. "Daniel, I don't feel well," she managed to say. She leaned forward, trying to breathe, trying to steady herself. And then it happened. She got sick. Right there in the helicopter. She expected concern. Maybe annoyance. But what she saw when she looked up made her blood run cold. Disgust. Pure, venomous disgust. "You're pathetic," Daniel hissed. His face twisted into something ugly, something monstrous. "Look at you. Weak. Embarrassing. I can't even stand to look at you anymore. Daniel, please." But he wasn't listening. He stood up. Moved toward her. And Lily realized, with a horror that froze her bones, that the helicopter door was open. "Daniel?" Her voice was small. Terrified. He didn't answer. He just stared at her with eyes that held no love, no mercy, no humanity at all. And then he grabbed her. "No, Daniel, please." She screamed. She fought. But he was stronger. And he was determined. He pushed. And Lily fell. The sky disappeared. The helicopter became a black dot above her. The wind screamed in her ears. And then. The water. Cold. Dark. Endless. It swallowed her whole, pulling her down, down, down into the depths where light couldn't reach. And as the ocean closed over her head, Lily Carter, the girl from Sunny Creek who only ever wanted to love and be loved, thought one final, heartbreaking thought. "I'm never going to see my son again." The fall was only the beginning. Because sometimes, when you hit rock bottom, the only way left to go is up. The ocean doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, loved or hated, innocent or guilty. It takes everyone the same way, cold, dark, and without mercy. But sometimes, just sometimes, the ocean gives back what it took. This is the part of the story where Lily Carter should have died. Where her name should have become nothing more than a tragic headline, a whispered rumor in Sunny Creek, a footnote in Daniel Stone's carefully constructed life. But death had different plans. And so did Lily. She didn't remember how she survived the fall. The human mind has a way of protecting us from the worst moments, blurring them, hiding them away in corners we can't reach. What she did remember was the water. The cold that felt like knives. The burning in her lungs as she fought to reach the surface. The waves that tossed her like she was nothing, over and over, until she stopped fighting and just let the current take her. She should have drowned. By every law of nature and probability, she should have sunk beneath those waves and never come up again. But the tide carried her. 4 hours. Maybe days. Time lost all meaning in that darkness. And then, somehow, there was sand beneath her fingers. Solid ground. The sound of voices, distant, concerned, speaking words she couldn't quite understand through the ringing in her ears. When Lily opened her eyes, she saw faces hovering above her. Dark eyes filled with worry. Gentle hands touching her forehead, checking her pulse. An old woman's voice, soft and rhythmic, speaking in a language Lily didn't know but somehow understood, meant, "You're safe now." She'd washed up on a small island, one of those forgotten places that didn't appear on tourist maps or travel brochures. A fishing village where life moved at the pace of the tides, where people still lived the way their grandparents and great-grandparents had lived. The villagers pulled her from the beach. They carried her to a small house with walls made of wood and a roof of palm leaves. They gave her water, broth, blankets. They asked no questions. They simply helped. Because that's what you do when you find someone broken on your shore. You help them heal. For 3 days, Lily barely moved. Her body was battered, bruises covering her skin like storm clouds, her ribs screaming with every breath, salt water still burning in her lungs. But worse than the physical pain was the emptiness inside her. She'd survived. But for what? Daniel had tried to kill her. Her husband, the father of her child, had looked her in the eyes and pushed her from the sky. And Noah, her baby boy, was back there, in that mansion, with a monster. The thought made her want to die all over again. But then, on the 4th morning, something changed. An old woman, the same one who'd first found her, came and sat beside Lily's bed. She didn't speak English well, but she didn't need to. She took Lily's hand in hers, weathered and strong, and she said one word. "Live." Not a suggestion. A command. "You live," the woman said again, squeezing Lily's hand. "You live, and you strong." And in that moment, something inside Lily shifted. The grief was still there. The pain was still there. But underneath it all, something else began to grow. Anger. Not the hot, destructive kind. The cold, focused kind. The kind that burns slow and steady and doesn't go out. Daniel had tried to break her. He'd tried to erase her. He'd tried to make her disappear. But she was still here. And she wasn't going to let him win. The villagers didn't know who Lily was. They didn't know about Daniel Stone or the mansion or the life she'd left behind. To them, she was just a woman the sea had given back, and that was enough. They asked her to help with small things at first. Sorting fish. Mending nets. Simple tasks that kept her hands busy and her mind from spiraling into darkness. But Lily wanted more. She needed more. "Teach me," she told the old woman one morning. "Teach me how to work. How to survive." The woman smiled, a smile that held a lifetime of wisdom and hardship. "We teach," she said. And they did. Lily learned how to farm the way the villagers did, with her hands in the dirt, her back bent under the sun, sweat dripping from her brow. It was nothing like the life she'd lived in Daniel's mansion, where everything was done for her. This was real. Raw. Honest. She learned how to plant seeds and coax them into life. How to read the soil and the sky. How to work until her muscles screamed and then keep working anyway, because the work was the point. The work made her strong. She learned their language, slowly, clumsily at first. She learned their songs. She learned how to laugh again, small laughs at first, hesitant and fragile, but real ones. The villagers didn't pity her. They didn't treat her like she was broken. They treated her like she was one of them, someone who'd lost something and was learning how to stand again. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, Lily began to transform. Her body grew strong. Her hands, once soft and delicate, became calloused and capable. Her mind, once clouded with fear and doubt, became sharp and focused. She wasn't the same woman who'd fallen from that helicopter. That woman was gone, drowned in the ocean, left behind on the shore. The woman who remained was something new. Something dangerous. Because Lily Carter had learned the most important lesson of all. When you've lost everything, you have nothing left to fear. Time passed. Months turned into years. Lily didn't just survive on that island. She thrived. She took everything the villagers taught her and built on it. She studied farming techniques from books she traded for in the nearest town. She experimented with crops, with irrigation, with ways to make the land more productive. She turned a small plot of borrowed earth into something remarkable. And then she expanded. She didn't do it alone. She worked with the villagers, shared profits, taught them what she learned. She built a business that wasn't about taking, it was about giving. About lifting people up instead of stepping on them to get higher. It started small. A few extra fields. Then a processing facility. Then contracts with markets on the mainland. Then exports. Before long, Lily Carter, who'd once been a trophy wife in a golden cage, was running a farming operation that fed thousands of people. She employed dozens of villagers. She built schools. She funded medical clinics. She became powerful. But not like Daniel. Her power came from building, not destroying. From helping, not hurting. People started to know her name again, but not as Daniel Stone's wife. As Lily Carter, the woman who built an empire from nothing. And every day, as she worked in the fields or reviewed contracts or planned the next expansion, she thought of Noah. Her son. The little boy she'd been torn away from. She thought about him every single morning when she woke up. Every single night before she fell asleep. And she made herself a promise. I'm coming back for you. Not tomorrow. Not next week. But when I'm ready. When I'm strong enough. When I have the power to face your father and win. Wait for me, baby. Mama's coming home. 5 years after Lily Carter fell from the sky, she stepped off a plane in New York City. She looked different now. Her hair was longer, sun-streaked and wild. Her skin was darker, kissed by years under the tropical sun. Her eyes, those eyes that had once been soft and trusting, now held something harder. Something unbreakable. She wore a simple dress, carried a single bag, and walked through the airport like she owned it. Because in a way, she did. She'd learned that confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you earn, through pain, through survival, through refusing to stay down when life knocks you flat. Lily had a plan. She'd spent years building it, piece by piece, brick by brick. First, she hired investigators. The best money could buy. They dug into Daniel's life, his business, his secrets. And what they found made Lily's blood run cold, but also gave her exactly what she needed. Daniel Stone wasn't just cruel. He was criminal. Fraud. Embezzlement. Bribery. All hidden behind layers of shell companies and offshore accounts. He'd built his empire on lies and stolen money, and he'd been so confident in his power that he'd gotten sloppy. Lily gathered every piece of evidence. Every document. Every transaction. Every witness who'd been too afraid to speak up before. And then she went to the authorities. Not dramatically. Not with fanfare. She simply walked into a federal building and laid it all out, calm, clear, methodical. My name is Lily Carter Stone, she said to the agent across the desk. And I have evidence that my husband is a criminal. The agent looked skeptical at first. Then he looked at the documents. Then he looked at her. Mrs. Stone, where have you been for the last 5 years? Lily smiled, a smile that held oceans and islands and scars that would never fully heal. I've been dead, she said. But I got better. The case moved fast once the dominoes started falling. Daniel Stone's empire, built on sand and secrets, collapsed in weeks. Federal agents raided his offices. His assets were frozen. His business partners turned on him like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Everything he'd built, everything he'd stolen, everything he'd used to make himself feel powerful, gone. But Lily didn't care about his money or his companies or his reputation. She cared about one thing. Noah. Her son was 9 years old now. She'd missed 5 years of his life, 5 years of birthdays and school plays and bedtime stories. 5 years of watching him grow from a baby into a boy. But she hadn't missed everything. And she wasn't going to miss any more. The day she walked into that mansion, her mansion, legally, since Daniel was now in custody and his assets were being seized, her hands were shaking. She found Noah in the garden. He was older, taller, but she would have known him anywhere. He had her eyes. Noah. Her voice cracked. The boy turned. Looked at her. Confusion crossed his face, then something else, something deeper, something buried but not forgotten. Do I? He started, his voice small. Do I know you? Lily knelt down so she was at his level. Tears were streaming down her face, but she didn't care. Yes, baby, she whispered. You know me. I'm your mother. And I'm so sorry it took me so long to come back. For a moment, Noah just stared. Processing. Remembering. Daniel had told him his mother was dead, had fed him lies for years. But children know truth when they hear it. They feel it in their bones. Noah took a hesitant step forward. Then another. And then he ran straight into Lily's arms and held on like he'd never let go. Mama, he sobbed into her shoulder. I thought you were gone. I was, Lily said, holding him tighter than she'd ever held anything in her life. But I came back. And I'm never, ever leaving you again. Daniel Stone went to prison. Not for trying to kill his wife, there wasn't enough evidence to prove that, and Lily didn't need that fight. He went to prison for fraud, for theft, for all the crimes he'd committed while thinking he was untouchable. He lost everything. His money. His freedom. His son. And Lily? Lily got justice. Not revenge, she didn't need revenge. She'd already won by becoming something Daniel could never understand, a person who builds instead of destroys. She and Noah moved into a smaller house. Nothing like the mansion, but it didn't need to be. It had a garden where they planted vegetables together. It had a porch where they sat and watched fireflies dance in the summer darkness, just like Lily used to do when she was a girl in Sunny Creek. Her farming business continued to grow. She split her time between America and the island, making sure the people who'd saved her life were taken care of. She taught Noah about kindness, about strength, about what it means to rise after you've fallen. And sometimes, late at night, when Noah was asleep and the house was quiet, Lily would stand at the window and look up at the stars. She thought about the girl she used to be. The woman she'd become. The fall that should have killed her. The ocean that should have been her grave. And she whispered a quiet thank you, to the sea, to the villagers, to whatever force in the universe had decided she deserved a second chance. Because Lily Carter's story isn't about a woman who almost died. It's about a woman who refused to. It's about falling from the sky and rising from the depths. It's about building something beautiful from broken pieces. It's about the truth that cruelty might be powerful, but kindness is stronger. And it's about the simple, profound lesson that echoes through every moment of her life. When someone tries to destroy you, the greatest revenge is to survive, and then to thrive. Lily Carter did both. And she lived happily ever after. Not because her life was perfect. Not because she never hurt or struggled or doubted. But because she chose, every single day, to keep going. And that, in the end, is the most powerful magic of all.